When we look at our parks in the US, it's hard enough to open seasonally or open a park where you've got 100 other parks right in your backyard that you can pull from. And I can go here and hire some guys who've done rides for 10 years, or I can go here and hire some engineers who've done maintenance before. We don't really have a whole lot of that in Saudi, so it's a brand new market. But let me flip that round and say we don't have the worst line in the world, which is, oh, we've always done it that way.
Tap into innovation at IAAPA Expo, the biggest industry event of the year.
Join us and other attraction pros in Orlando, Florida, November 18th to the 22nd to engage with the global community.
Learn from the experts, leave with new ideas, and turn your passion for the industry into new possibilities.
Register now using the link in the show notes to save up to 30%.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going fantastically, Josh. How are you?
Doing great. Question for you.
Yes, sir.
What's the tallest and fastest roller coaster you've been on?
That would have to be Qiddiya City at Great Adventure.
You mean the tallest roller coaster in the world, the one that was the fastest when it opened in 2005?
I think it had the Ests for a number of things back in the day, but no longer.
That's right, because today we're going to talk about Falcon's Flight.
Woohoo!
Opening in Qiddiya at Six Flags in Saudi Arabia. We're both coaster enthusiasts, right? And I remember before Qiddiya City opened, Top Thrill Dragster opened, now Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point. Dragster opened in 2003, and when it was announced, it was 420 feet tall, 120 miles an hour, and was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world when it opened, similar to the, like you said, the Ists that Qiddiya City. And I remember just a few years prior to that, Millennium Force opened, topping 300 for the first time. 11 years before that, Magnum XL 200 opened, topping 200 feet for the first time. So it was interesting to see these spans of time that would go through in between these, I guess, somewhat significant milestone record-breaking rides that would open. And Dragster opened in 2003. And then Falcon's Flight is going to open in 2025. So I think this might be the longest amount of time we've gone in between 100-foot marks of roller coaster heights. I know this is extreme roller coaster nerddom, but you know what? That's what today's episode is gonna cover just a little bit.
I think so. And what's so cool, and I mentioned this when we were talking to Neil Dwyer, by the way, is our guest today, who is the VP of Operations at Six Flags Qiddiya, if I said that correctly. When I first saw the rendering of Falcon's Flight, I thought it was somebody doing this in No Limits, the coaster program or something. Like, I didn't think this was real. And then when I started to realize, no, this is a real coaster, this is something you can actually get on and ride, I had that same thought. Like, it's been a while since we'd had something that shattered the records in terms of the height and the speed and that type of thing. So I'm guessing it's going to be worth the wait.
And to that point, even though you and I have been on some of the tallest and fastest coasters in the world, this one makes me a little nervous. Like I get that, which is great. Like, it's been a while since I've had just that kind of scared-ish feeling of, and I'm not even on it. I don't even live within several thousand miles of it. But to think I'd be a little nervous getting on it. And I've got that butterflies in my stomach feeling and that anticipation, which is, for me, it's cool to feel that, because I don't feel that very much anymore.
Now, do you remember, if you go back and think about that first time you stood and looked up at Dragster, right? Or even Millennium Force? Those two are imposing structures. And now
Yeah.
you think about what this is going to look like, Falcon's Flight, and again, it shatters the records. So if you had butterflies back then, and I did too, like the first time looking up at Millennium Force or Top Thrill or Kingda Ka to an extent, because the tower is further away from kind of where you are.
True.
So you don't see that, you're not as close to it. But again, getting really nerdy here, I think that that butterfly feeling is that feeling of anticipation. And for us, because of the things that we've done and the things that we've been able to experience, it takes more and more of the height and the ests to get that butterfly feeling. Whereas for other people, you show them an old Arrow looping coaster and they're like, whoa, I'm not getting on that thing. You know, so I think it's kind of relative. The butterflies are relative.
It also shows that roller coasters really stand the test of time, and that even some that are older and they might not be the tallest and fastest and longest or steepest or any other ists, they still give that first time feeling to those who are riding it for the first time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, we get to talk about Falcon's Flight and a lot of other things with our guest, Neil, today. So one of the things that I think is really cool about the things that Neil talks about is the fact that he's been on the ground floor of creating this new park in Saudi Arabia, and he comes from the operator's perspective. And so he's been able to really influence how things are put together. He talks about the operator's booth of a particular attraction and, you know, the sight lines and those type of things, and really being able to take into consideration not just the architect, the designer, and the engineer, but also the operator's perspective.
Yeah, which is really cool because, you know, there have been a number of times where you and I have probably made observations while working in the industry, or a lot of people who are listening to this might say, could it have been designed a little bit differently? And maybe it was not that it was designed wrong or improperly, but maybe some things changed over time, or maybe it was just, oh, the operating model was a little bit different than perhaps when it was being designed, or just that was there that little bit of a disconnect. So it was interesting to hear about that. We also talked in depth about my favorite topic, which is service recovery. And I have never met anyone aside from myself who did their master's thesis on service recovery. So I had to stop. This could have very easily have been a 3-hour plus interview if the three of us would have let it. And I think it's possible that we may have if we didn't actually, cut off the conversation eventually, or wind down the conversation, I should say. But we talked about effective service recovery. So we talked about it from a strategy standpoint. And then Neil shares a story that was very tangible, very relevant. It was a massive recovery story, and we talked about why that was so successful for the business, from a business standpoint, and from an operations and guest experience standpoint as well.
And I would say, as much as we nerded out on the coaster talk, we kind of nerded out on service recovery as well. So I thought that was really cool. But the other thing that Neil really talks a lot about is the fact that, especially in this new role, no challenge is unsolvable. So thinking about all the different facets of opening a brand new theme park, and the new rides and the new food and beverage and the new merchandise and everything that goes into that, there are so many challenges and obstacles that you're going to face, but you really have to have that attitude that anything that comes your way, you're going to be able to solve in some way, shape, or form.
Which is just great words of advice to hear. This was just such an amazing interview. So should we fasten our seatbelts and pull down our lap bar and head up that very tall 500 plus foot lift hill out to Saudi Arabia?
Set up right, hold on tight, get ready for the interview with Neil.
Hey, Neil, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are so excited for our conversation today and the opportunity to chat with you. How are you?
Hey, great. How are you guys? And thanks for having me.
We're doing well, doing great. Really excited about all things Six Flags Qiddiya and learning about the progress, as well as you personally and your career story and your background. So I'd say let's actually start with that. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and your career.
I think I've had a pretty similar start to a lot of people in attractions. That my parents told me I needed to get a summer job when I was 17. That's how you want to drive a car and keep going to parties and stuff. You better start working and learn the value of money. So I was studying for a career in IT. That was what I was going to college for, and then to university. And okay, got to get a summer job. Let's do something interesting. So I did, and saw a job opening at a local park in the UK where I'm from as a ride operator. Cool, get to be outside and talk to people, and they're going to pay me for this. So I applied and went to work in the job, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And I had some great summers there, and those great summers kind of turned into, well, I'm having a great summer, but IT is interesting, but it's definitely not as interesting as this. And it just sort of progressed from there. And I stayed with them for such a long time, and I was so fortunate to progress in the park, to become a team leader and an assistant manager, and to get involved in some projects. And we were a pretty small park. And I sort of graduated with a bachelor's in IT and thought, wow, what do I do next? I don't really want to be a computer programmer, and I definitely wasn't that skilled as some of the guys on my college program. These guys were super wizards. So we had a really great GM in the park, and it was sort of closing season, and we sat down, and she just said, "What do you want to do, Neil?" I don't know. I kind of like working in the park. She said, "Well, you should do that." And I said, no. I need to get a real job. What am I going to do? She's like, this is a real job for me. I've done this for 30 years. Why can't you do it? You know what? You're right. Why can I not do it? And from there, I went back to study. I took a master's degree in attraction management. I was lucky enough to join Blackpool Pleasure Beach and work for the family over there. And I had a really great time. And it just snowballed from there. I was having a great time getting involved in all sorts of things in Blackpool. We did new rides, and we worked with Nickelodeon, and we launched Wallace and Gromit, which is a really UK centric brand. But it was just fantastic to get involved in such an amazing park. And then somebody called me and said, "Hey Neil, you want to come to Dubai? Dubai, that's where it's sunny, right? And I can have a swimming pool." Because where I'm from, in Manchester in the UK, nobody has a swimming pool. It rains 9 months of the year. And I think they called me in a really depressing November, and it was freezing temperatures outside. And they said, "Hey, come to Dubai, we're building a park." Okay, cool, sign me up. So I went across to Dubai. We opened IMG Worlds of Adventure, which was at the time the world's largest indoor theme park. The park had just signed Marvel as an IP when I joined. We also had Cartoon Network and some homegrown IP. And what a great place to work. They had great relationship. I had a great time to be able to work with some of the guys from Disney who bought Marvel a little bit later on. And we opened the park, 1.5 million square feet indoor park with a whole array of interactive rides, some cool coasters, and I just got involved everywhere. And they'd never done it before. We'd never opened a brand new park before. We'd done projects, and I was so fortunate to be involved, and so fortunate to have such a great team around me, and that just kind of skyrocketed from there. Dubai was a kind of a short-term plan, and then that was 10 years ago, and I moved around a couple of times from there. I went to Global Village, which if you guys don't know, or if your listeners have not visited, it's a little bit like the Epcot model, pavilions from around the world. It's a multicultural heritage park. There's attractions and entertainment. But a busy night for these guys is like 100,000 people in the park. It was just crazy. And they were doing 6 million visitors in 156 days. It was just wild. And again, I had a real great opportunity to go in there with one of Dubai's real leading attractions. And we got involved and to change a lot of stuff and the pace that they move, because they close seasonally. Pavilions change theme every year. So if Egypt one year is pyramids, the next year it's going to be the Sphinx, or it's going to be something else from that country. So they retheme every year. They move at such an incredible pace. I've never seen it before. And I had a fantastic time with those guys in Dubai. And then somebody called me and said, "Neil, you won't believe what we're building in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be this huge Six Flags park, and we're building the world's tallest, fastest, longest coaster, and it's going to be in this huge entertainment city." And I said, "Show me." So they did, and it was just fantastic. And I've been on the project for 3.5 years now. I joined really at the beginning, and we're really working on concept design and ride layouts and planning. And I was really fortunate, and they sort of recognized the need to have operators in, and I worked with a great bunch of operators just to be able to give that input and say, hey, how does an operator want it to be designed? Because they're really good at doing buildings and layouts and foundations and technical stuff and all the stuff that I'm not good at. but how should the queue line look, and what should it look like for our guests, and is this going to work well for our team? So it's been really lucky to be involved in that, and with some amazing ride hardware. And I'm really a ride guy. That was where I started. Day one, when I started that first job, they let me operate the junior pirate ship. And then day two, they put me on the roller coaster. And that's really where my background's been. And I've been everywhere in operations and commercial, but was really a rides guy. So you tell me you're going to build this huge roller coaster, then absolutely sign me up.
That is so cool, Neil. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was just fascinating to hear, going from, being a ride operator and then following that path all the way through. And I'm wondering if we can go back to that ride operator experience, and what were some of those things that really stuck with you from that experience that you said, this is what I want to do? Like, was it interacting with the guests or getting to work with the machines, or like, how did that affect you to the point where you decided this is going to be your career?
Do you know what? I think I was fascinated by a couple of things. The first one was about the guests, and how do we deal with guests, and how can you impact somebody's day? And I could see that happening as they were coming to our attractions, and our teams were dealing with them. And right from the beginning, from when I joined there when I was 17, I was just watching how this dynamic happened, and I'd never really appreciated it before. And wow, this is fascinating. And that drove me to write my master's thesis on guest service and service failure in parks, because I was really then sort of became aware of what happens when something goes wrong, and how do our team deal with it, and do we cause it to go wrong, and how can we recover that? And it was real fascinating thing for me. And then the second part was, how do the machines work, but how does the park work, and how do people flow? And you start to see these patterns of where do people go at certain times, and when do queue lines get busy? What happens when a ride breaks down, and how do we deal with that? And I got I started to get really interested in the engineering side, and my father was an engineer, and from being a kid, I can remember weekends going out, being in his garage, or going out doing stuff with him, and it was always taking stuff apart or tinkering with cars or anything like that. So I just sort of natural curiosity continued, I guess, and I was just watching these huge roller coasters and these dark rides, and how does everything work? So I just became really interested in how do we craft those experiences.
So I definitely perked up a little when you said you did your master's thesis on guest service and service failures, because I did mine also on service failures and recovery. So I definitely want to talk about that. But I want to put a pin in that for now, because I want to go back to one of the things you said as far as how an operator wants it to be designed. And you said you've been on the project for 3.5 years now, and being able to have that level of involvement. I wonder if you can expand a little bit on that and talk about what that input might look like to see the construction process and the design through the lens of the operator.
Yeah, I think we've been fortunate enough to work with some really great architects and some really great designers who've just absolutely listened to everything that we want to do, that we wanted to do, and we wanted to incorporate. So whether that's how should the operator sit in an operator booth when they're operating the ride? We did some great 3D view studies with some fantastic software that's out there now. Of course, we couldn't do this 20 years ago when I first started. We didn't have that kind of software or those tools, but I can now sit in a 3D model of the park. I can sit in the chair that the operator is going to sit in, and I can look at his visibility of that ride and know that he's going to be able to see everything, that they're going to be able to, that's going to work when that design comes together. So it's just being able to drill down to those real fine details, where sometimes when we've built rides, or we've built food and beverage, or we've built retail before, we've sat there and gone, I wish I'd done this differently. So to have the technology at the hand, and a great team of people who have got me sat there with a pencil going, I think I want it to look like this, or can we put something over here? And they go, do you mean and they give me the really technical term of what it's called. Okay, yeah, I think that's what I mean. And we do it together. It's been a really, really great time of working together to do that.
I would also imagine, Neil, there's a lot of responsibility there, because now, 10 years from now, somebody's going to say, who designed this? Like it was supposed to be good, and maybe something else happened or something changed, and now things are altered and it's not what your vision was. So how do you kind of deal with that responsibility, knowing that this is something that ideally will last and will work for a long time?
I think we've a couple of things. We've built in the fact that we know we're going to need to change stuff, and I told the team, and the guys when I joined told me, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to open and go, what were we thinking? Why did we do that? And I've pre-opened properties before, and I'm really fortunate to work with some people who've pre-opened some absolutely massive properties. The guys tell that some of the guys who I work with were on the pre-opening team of Universal Orlando when that first opened, and they tell me all about those learnings. And what really actually sold this to me was one of the guys who was our president of parks joined said to me, you know, Neil, when we opened, it was a real disaster, and there was 100 things we'd not thought about. And you're going to do exactly the same when you open Six Flags. But we're going to fix it. We're going to get it right. So it's all about how quickly do we fix it? How do we make sure that the guest experience is optimized? How quickly can we listen to that feedback, and how agile are we to move? So we know that not everything's going to be perfect. But I really do believe that we've spent a lot of time on a lot of detail and getting everything that we can possibly foresee in there.
Yeah, so that helps to alleviate some of the pressure from you when those problems arise, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And I think we've got everything right. And if we didn't, then we'd change it now. But let's see. And that's developing every day as stuff happens on site. You know, we go out and go, oh, okay, this doesn't work. We need to move this. Oh, we need to do it. Yeah. We've got we're kind of fortunate in that construction period, and we don't have a season that's just around the corner like some of the seasonal parks do. So we have a little bit of time to be able to change stuff.
Yeah. Curious as far as if you're able to tell us maybe some of the challenges along the way, because opening a new theme park of any size brings a lot of challenges, but then at this scale, at this magnitude, and you've got the tallest, fastest, longest roller coaster in the world coming. Curious as far as maybe some of the hurdles that you've been clearing along the way.
You guys want to make this like a 3-hour podcast, right? We want to talk about them.
Yeah, we're in.
You know, I think the first thing I want to say is what I say to my team. No challenge is unsolvable. We're going to have all these issues, but we're going to solve all of them. That's part of the fun of the game. It's been difficult for us because it's a brand new market. We don't have a lot of local expertise. We don't have a lot of attractions that are open in Saudi. The market wants them. The Saudis want them, and they're so excited for them. But there's nowhere we can go and just go down. You know, if I'm in Orlando, I can go to a competing park and see what they're doing, and I can show people and we can talk about it. We don't have that in our backyard, and we don't have that. We don't have that expertise. And you know, when we look at our parks in the US, it's hard enough to open seasonally or open a park where you've got 100 other parks right in your backyard that you can pull from, and I can go here and hire some guys who've done rides for 10 years, or I can go here and hire some engineers who've done maintenance before. We don't really have a whole lot of that in Saudi, so it's a brand new market. But let me flip that round and say we don't have the worst line in the world, which is, oh, we've always done it that way, which is which I've heard 100 times in my career. We really have the opportunity to carve something new, to make something new, and to go out there and start from a blank sheet of paper. And all my team have had the opportunity to do that, so that's super exciting. And then, of course, you said, there's some really impressive rides, and you don't go and build the world's tallest, fastest, longest coaster without challenges. And you know, I've been working on that since I joined 3.5 years ago, and we've been through everything, looking at environmental variables and how do we make it efficient, and capacity is really important for us, and listening to feedback from manufacturers and parks and enthusiasts, because we've had such a following online of this park, of so many people recreating models. We've had people taking pictures of the park, and there's some great simulations out there, which, by the way, are not too far off being 100% accurate. So we've really taken that, and we've been through pages and pages of internet posts and comments on videos, and we really try to listen to that feedback to optimize it. And you know, there's 100 challenges with doing this coaster, but it's gonna be amazing, I think.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I have to admit that the first time I saw any kind of simulation for it, I thought, this is something somebody made up. Like, this is not a real thing, you know, just because it looks so outrageous. But super excited to someday be able to get over there and ride it. But I'm also curious, Neil, you talked about how fast things go and how fast things develop over there. And I'm curious if you can talk maybe about some of the cultural differences, maybe from the UK to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, that you've noticed that, you know, either, like you said, have helped the process or maybe have been a challenge to the process.
Yeah, I think the challenge is we're in a country that's changing, and as part of Vision 2030 that the Saudi government are really charging, we're sort of the country's really focusing on entertainment, and it's not a focus that they've had before. So it's all brand new for them, and it's in a market where it's just never happened. So when we look at whether it's us building Six Flags or building Aqua Arabia, which is our water park, or whether it's concerts or festivals or sports events or Formula One or all these things that are coming, and they're coming at great speed. They've never really been done before in this country. So it's kind of an exciting time, which is a world of opportunity because I've been here for 3.5 years. The Saudis are so hospitable. They can teach me how to do guest service. We don't need to run guest service classes in our park because these guys just comes naturally to their culture and to their traditions. And, you know, we always talk about that thing in guest service of inviting guests into your home and treat them like they're a guest in your home and serve them dinner and prepare the house. That's exactly what happens every single day here in Saudi. So now we just need to take that and give the technical training, which I think is going to be really easy because the population of Saudis, and we're aiming to staff the park with 65% Saudis. This is a project for the country. It just comes naturally to these guys, and they're so excited by it. When the first week I was here, we said, "Can you believe we're getting a Six Flags? Can you believe we're getting all this entertainment? Like, how exciting is it?" And I'm equally excited to be. I feel like I'm on a journey with these guys. It's so amazing to see.
I'm curious to learn more about, I would say, the hospitality standard, or you said the guest service. You said you don't need to run guest service class because they already have it. And you've been in the industry for so many years. I'm curious as far as what have you learned just since being there about guest service or the way that they approach it that might be different, and that I think everyone who's watching and listening could take from that.
I think there's a couple of things that I've learned. Firstly, it should always be the number one priority. Actually, my teams will tell you it's the number two priority. We always take safety first. Nobody ever compromises on safety. And I always say to my guys, it's okay to upset a guest, but only for safety reasons. It's never okay to upset safety for guest reasons. But the guest always comes first in everything we do. And if we're thinking about safety, we're thinking about that guest welfare and enjoyment, because someone comes into one of our parks and doesn't have a safe experience, that's going to completely ruin it. And I think the other thing that we're really conscious of in pre-opening, and I've done a couple of these openings of parks, is you only get one chance at a first impression. If you open an attraction or a park that's not ready or isn't up to standard, or your team are not fully trained, or you don't have the right structure in place, that first impression is going to live with you for a long, long time, and it's going to be really hard to shake. So make sure we're ready, put the guests first, and when we get something wrong, like I said, let's make sure we correct it. Let's make sure we correct it pretty quickly. And Josh, service recovery, how important that is, that we do get something wrong. We're all humans. We're going to make mistakes. Our teams are going to make mistakes. Do we deal with that in the right way? Let's hope so.
Yeah, and so I was going to ask a little bit about that when things go wrong. You've got that hospitality, I'll just say mentality, like Josh says in his book. But then when things go wrong, that's, I think, when really, really great service providers, sometimes that's when they come to life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious maybe to go a little bit deeper into that. When you talk about the people that, live that, and that's part of their culture now, like, what have you experienced when things have gone wrong? Have you seen them just kind of, take it and run with it and just kind of, again, just blossom because, oh, now I get to really solve a problem?
Yeah, I think we have some great guys in our team who want to solve those problems, and whether that's been anything that sort of happened while I've been in Saudi, everybody wants to make sure that you're happy. Everybody wants to make sure that whatever your problem was gets solved, and then going above and beyond. Okay, sit down. Can I get you guys a drink? Spend some time here. Tell me why it went wrong. Are you feeling okay about this? And they want to make sure that they invest the time in you. And I think that's got to be reflective in the park. We're working on the process now of being able to empower our leaders. And a thing that we've done quite a few times before is to make sure that those teams on the park are empowered to be able to fix those guest problems, whether that means we're going to give you a fast pass, or we're going to give you a VIP experience, or we're going to take you somewhere, or we're just going to say sorry, and we're just going to give you our time. that they've got that empowerment to be able to solve it. Because for me, there's nothing worse when something goes wrong in a park and you go, oh, okay, well, you need to go over there and that person's going to deal with it. And I get passed around. I want to get it resolved on the spot. And I think we need to build on that. In the local culture, the local hospitality, they want to make people feel welcome. I can't tell you how many times a day that I speak to people and they say, welcome. And they really, really mean it. You are welcome. And let's make people feel like that. Let's build on it and make sure our teams on the parks are empowered to be able to deal with our guests when they go wrong, when something goes wrong, whatever that means. You don't need me to come down and give you a fast pass to a ride or take you onto a ride platform or get you a soda. No, it should be resolved well before I ever even get to hear about it.
Well, I think it's a perfect time then to circle back here to your master's thesis. I would love to hear, what was it about? I know this is a very broad question and we could probably go very deep on it, but just kind of that high level overview. What were you researching? What'd you learn?
So a couple of things, and I really split into two things. What does guest satisfaction mean in a park? Because we talk a lot about making our guests happy and why do people come and what are their expectations when they come out to a park. So what does that look like? You know, learnings for me was, I hope everybody was coming for the rides and the shows. Actually, things that you probably don't expect was really up there. Cleanliness of your park, safety of your park. Nobody goes there thinking, oh, I'm going to go here and have a really safe experience, but it's always at the back of your mind and something that you're always assessing. So make sure you get those kind of things right. And then we looked at service recovery and what happens when things go wrong. And the park I was at the time had sort of this culture of, oh, something went wrong, I'm very sorry, here's some tickets, come back. And our guest services at the end of the day almost just became this queue because we got a little bit of a reputation for just giving free tickets out. Oh, you spilt your soda? I'm sorry, come back, here's some free tickets. And it was just almost a queue to collect your free tickets for a return visit on the way out. The really interesting thing I learned about that, we took all those tickets that we gave out one season and analyzed them, and only 30% of people ever came back. So what that said was, just giving you a free ticket and saying sorry and trying to deal with you, it's probably not enough to recover that service experience. If you've really, really genuinely had a poor experience and we've really got something wrong, you can't just buy your way out of that upset. And don't think that just because you give a guest a free ticket that they're going to come back, because it's still an investment for them to come to your park, because they've still got to commit their time. They've still got to get in the car and pay for their fuel and make the trip, and they're going to come in your park, and even with a free ticket, they're going to buy food and beverage and merchandise and soda. So it's still it's still an investment. So just giving that free ticket and saying, oh, I'm sorry, come back, it's not enough. And if they've really, really had a poor experience, they perhaps don't want to come back unless they know that you mean something about fixing that and how you're going to fix it.
So Neil, I'm curious, when you talk about, that kind of the easy thing of giving a ticket, right? We think it's easy. We can give it away, get them out of the office, that kind of thing. What have you found to be some of the more unexpected ways that we can recover that service that maybe we don't think about, as readily as giving away a ticket?
Sometimes I think we get wrapped up into thinking about it's about giving a ticket, it's about giving something away, and I can just buy myself out of this. I think there's two aspects. The first one, that people really want to know that you're sorry and they really want their feedback to be listened to. Everybody's had the copy-paste email when something's gone wrong. I'm very sorry to hear about this. And you know that they don't listen and they're not going to take that feedback on board. Mostly people want to be heard and they want their feedback taken on board and know that you're going to make a change or you're going to make an improvement or you're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And then I think the other thing is when something goes wrong, it doesn't have to be high value. It doesn't have to be giving something away. How can you make a unique experience for that guest and something that's really, really memorable? The sort of academic research says that we'll remember 10% of really, really good experiences and 10% of really, really poor experiences. And if you ask me now, I can tell you about some great experiences I've had at parks, and I can tell you about some really bad experiences I've had in parks or restaurants or wherever it is. But that other 80%, it just kind of blends into, it happened. How many times have you guys been to a restaurant or you've been to a show or you've seen something or you've been to hundreds of parks? it all just kind of blends into the average. So you want to take that negative 10% and supercharge it and put it into that positive 10%. I want to remember it for a good reason.
You make a really good point. If it's 10% of really good experiences or 10% of really bad experiences you're going to remember, and if it's a bad experience, okay, it's falling into that 10% of really bad experience that we're going to remember now. The purpose of service recovery, kind of to your point, is to shift that over and to say we're going to change the memory. I like to say if you change the memory, you're changing history, right? Because of the way that they're now going to process on their experience and their visits. You're changing history. It's future history because they're still within your realm. They're still, on board. So there's maybe a little time travel joke and reference in it. Do you have any really good service recovery stories personally that you like to share?
Yeah, actually, we had one when I was in the UK at the first park I looked after, and we unfortunately sent a really big group book in the wrong opening time. So we told them that we were opening late, and the park was actually closing on a short-term day. So they turned up at our entrance at 3 p.m. and, hey, we're here. We're closing in an hour and a half, guys. This is and you can imagine when they pulled out the letter saying, hey, we're open till 9 p.m. So we rallied around and we spoke to all of our teams and we kept everybody on, and everybody pulled a 13-hour shift, and we kept the park open just for that group. And that was a group of like 120. I can't tell you how much money we lost by keeping a park open for 120 people that evening. But you know what? That group came back every single year. And without that, they never would have done. We would have lost it. And okay, we say, maybe we lost 120 guests out of that, but how many people are they going to tell about that bad experience? Oh, don't make a group booking with that park. They can't even send the right opening times out. And it was our mistake, and we owned it, and we lived it, and we footed the bill. Fantastic experience. And I saw that group go back to the park every year that I was there after that.
So Neil, I'm curious, the thought process behind that. Again, it could have been very easy to say, well, that was a typo. We screwed up. Here's some tickets to come back again, for another one, but we're closing at 4:30 and that's that. For you to rally the troops and to get everybody to stay open, that's a very different thought process that you'd have to go through as a management team. And I'm curious, first of all, how you made that decision and say, this is the right thing to do, so we're going to do it. And then what was the reaction of the team when you did start to go around and rally the troops to say, hey, we're going to ask you to stay a little bit longer because of this, and this is going to be the impact. But how was that process?
I think we had two aspects. I think the first thing, we had a really, really good culture and a really guest-focused culture, and we all recognized how important the guest was and how important doing the right thing was. So from a business side, it was really a no-brainer if we should do the right thing here and make sure these guys have an awesome experience. And our team bought into that, and they bought into it every single day. It wasn't just one mistake that somebody had made when they made a group booking, but the team bought into that. And when we explained what had happened, and sort of having that team culture and everybody buying in and supporting you and nobody grumbling, I think it says quite a lot about your wider culture and how you roll that out. And if we just said, hey, you know what, we're just going to close and we're all going home and let's give these guys some tickets, that for me doesn't live the guest service culture that we talk about every day. And it really stand in front of a team, an operations team in a park and say, hey, we need to go out there and we need to make sure we're amazing. Well, unless we get it wrong because I've got to be somewhere at 5 p.m. and I'm leaving today. No, so let's make sure we live and breathe it every day. And I think that example sort of had had the resonance around the park with the employees about how committed we were to it as well. So we might have lost monetary, but I think we gained in the big picture.
And to that point, there's math that supports that. Yes, there was an immense cost to keep the park open that much longer, but there's data out there that says one negative review, or we could say one negative experience that leads to word of mouth, can turn away up to 30 prospective visitors. Now, for a group of 120, doing some quick math, that's turning away 3,600 prospective visitors times your average party size, which even if it's less than 3, that's 10,000 people times your per cap. Let's keep the park open a few extra hours.
Yeah, you're completely right. And what does 10,000 people look like on your P&L, on your financial metrics? Well, that's got a much bigger impact than 120 people and keeping people's expenses going for a few hours to make sure they have a great experience.
Yeah. So let's go back to the park here. Let's talk a little bit about Falcon's Flight. You've got the longest, tallest, fastest roller coaster in the world. Not even by like it's not just like one upping like the current tallest. It is a significant, it is a considerable amount. What's the hype been like for it? I feel like we can't get out of this interview as coaster enthusiasts that we are here without talking about it a little.
Do you know what? It's been absolutely insane. We've had so much stuff online. We've had so many people talking about it. Last year at IAAPA in Orlando, we unveiled the train. We unveiled one of the carriages in the front of the train, which is absolutely beautiful. And you guys, if you've not seen it, please Google it and look at some of the images from there. So it's been hand carved by the artists in Intamin into a falcon's head, which is the traditional animal of Saudi Arabia, and it's representative across the park in a lot of our design. It's just been a fantastic experience in building the hype. It's been fantastic in working with a team who want to push to the limits, whether that's engineers or ergonomics or how's it going to sit. And look, we've been through so many challenges. We've had the train in a wind tunnel, both simulated and actual, because how's the airflow going to be when you're going at these insane speeds? We've been in temperature studies because we're in a desert climate. So what does it look like when outside it's 110 degrees? Is this going to work? I think we talked about it in IAAPA. The station has forced air cooling, so the wheels will be forced cooled. The train has to spend a minimum amount of time in the station so that its wheels are cooled, because it's been on such a long journey around that track. Of course, then that came to us of capacity and how do we drive capacity, and if a train's got to be in this station for quite a long time. So we've gone to a double station, which is loading, waiting, and unloading. So the station can hold 6 trains. We will operate 6 trains, which is pretty terrifying for some people, pretty terrifying for me as well. And you're telling the ops guys, do we need to operate 6 trains? Yeah, we're gonna run 6, and it's gonna be amazing. And it's probably the #1 question I get from the enthusiasts as well. 6, really? You're gonna be no. You're gonna run 3, right? And 3 are gonna be no. We're gonna operate 6. Capacity is been a real driver for us. We know that we're building such a headline attraction that, like you guys say, it's not just a little bit above the previous records. We've gone out there and completely smashed them. And we really know that it's going to be a destination ride that people are going to travel for. So it's a real focus for us.
So I'm going to ask kind of a nerd question right now, thinking about the coaster wars and how they've gotten taller and taller and faster and things like this. And, it's hard to even imagine from a non-engineering standpoint, like how it could be that big and that fast, and just building a machine like that. Can we imagine a day when this is not the tallest, fastest, and longest roller coaster in the world?
Ooh, split question. Do you know, as an industry guy and a coaster guy, and then I want to say, well, I hope someone's out there to beat us. But as a park headline, I want to say, I hope just not yet. I think the way technologies move since we look at what the previous record holders are, and that's really in a short time, right? These are not old coasters that hold the records. Look how fast stuff is moving today. We've got some pretty new technology on Falcon's Flight. So if you ask me in 10 years, has that technology progressed? Does that allow us to go bigger, to go faster? Yeah, I think it's absolutely going to.
I remember when Dragster was announced at Cedar Point, opening in 2003, and the first coaster to top 400 feet. And the internet forums, people were saying, so when do we think we're going to hit 500? And everyone's like, slow down. Let's get there. And now we know the answer. 22 years, right? Anticipating a 2025 opening. So you talked a little bit about the international and worldwide, coverage that the park has been getting, and that people are going to be coming from all over the world. Curious as far as more locally, what's the community been like? How have they responded to the development of the park, and ways that you've been able to engage the community to make sure that you have support of the locals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're super excited for it, and let me say that the park really is a park for locals. So when we look at our visitor demographic, we know the majority of our visitors are going to be from inside the kingdom or inside the Middle East. So we really know that it's ultimately a park for Saudis. But the worldwide reach of these rides that we're building, and we talk about Falcons, but there's some really other impressive rides that are also world record breaking. We've got the world's tallest shot and drop tower. We've got the highest inversion on Spitfire, which is our triple launch coaster. So the highest inversion of any coaster in the world. That's a record on its own. And when you stand at the side of it at the Falcons and you go, oh, it kind of looks kind of small. Actually, it's really not. So there's huge amounts of hype across all these attractions that we're building. And I think in Saudi, they're more excited than anybody. They're an incredibly young population, actually. Two-thirds of the population are under the age of 35. So it's an incredibly young population, which is entirely our demographic. And everywhere I go, if I turn up somewhere with the Six Flags logo on my shirt, Six Flags, it's coming here, right? This is what it's going to be. And they just want to talk about it. I've stopped wearing the shirt outside now because if you go to the grocery store and my wife goes, why have you been outside for 3 hours? Oh, okay, well, I got talking about Falcon's Flight in the fruit and veg aisle. But the hype is insane, and I really think it's going to live up to expectations, and also an incredibly exciting time when we talk about the brand and being able to do that brand both ways. I think coming to Saudi, that we're having the Six Flags brand first park outside of North America. We're bringing this across and making it also, culturally fitting. But also the Six Flags in the US, it's been such a long time since they built a brand new park. It was 1971 when the last new build Six Flags opened, and of course there's been acquisitions since then, and parks have expanded and changed. But it's really an exciting time on both sides. So when we hear the worldwide audience about how excited they are to see it, I think this is really going to be something special.
Yeah, I know maybe it's crossing the employee enthusiast line when you talk about building a brand new theme park, because it doesn't happen very often. I mean, we talk about Epic Universe over here and some other places, but ground up theme parks, they just don't happen. They're huge expenses, right? They're huge endeavors that takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort. And to your point of things you were saying before, yeah, there's going to be mistakes, but you want to get it right, and I think that drive and desire to want to get it right, I think, is probably maybe even what holds people back from saying, hey, I've got this great idea, but man, it's going to take a lot to execute on that. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but more of an observation of just that it just doesn't happen very often.
You're absolutely right, and I say to my team, you guys are part of something. We're all part of something so incredibly exciting. There's not many places in the world, and okay, we know about a couple of parks that are coming up. Universal's super excited for, and some other stuff that's happening around the world. But there's really not that many places you can go in the world and build a brand new park, or where people are building brand new parks, because it's a huge expense. It's a huge time investment. It requires time, capital, design. Everything is a huge thing for us. But to be able to do it in a market like this, where it's a blank canvas, and we can really sort of start to set the standard, along with a lot of the other projects that are sort of happening in Riyadh and in Saudi Arabia, it's just phenomenal. And every day I have to pinch myself and think, oh well, we're so lucky to be part of this.
Well, Neil, I feel like we've blinked here and we're coming close to the end of our interview, which makes me sad. I feel like this could be a 3-hour conversation very easily. I feel like all three of us could banter for that long without stopping. But out of respect for your time and for our audience, I know it's late at night for you in Saudi Arabia right now. As we start to wind this down, a final question, and that is about career advice. And you walked us through your full career story at the beginning of the interview here. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice on the first day of your first job, what would you tell yourself?
I would say never stop asking questions and never stop challenging things. If you turn up and you think that maybe something should be different, or I could make this work better, or I've got an idea here, ask questions, challenge it. Don't be afraid to do it differently. there's 100 things that you could probably improve. And we've all been that guy in the room who's thought, oh, is this a stupid idea or not? Well, actually, it's probably not, and maybe no one else has thought about it. And you probably have some really, really good insight to give. So I think that's something that I would say to anyone starting their career out. And what we're saying to our teams, because we've got already quite a lot of young Saudis who've joined our project, and they've joined either on graduate development programs or other programs with the General Entertainment Authority in Saudi to build skills and to give that expertise. And we say the same to them. And you're coming here with a fresh set of eyes. And we talk about our graduates who spent time at Rosen College and worked in some of the US attractions and spent some time in our Six Flags US parks as well. And they're coming back with a fresh set of eyes. And we're going, oh, wow, we never thought about that. Is that okay? Yeah, keep asking questions, keep challenging us. Let's make it better. Let's collaborate on that. And I think that's just a great way to be if you can do that.
Yeah, I love that that sense of collaboration, and I think it can only help you as you are, embarking on this this journey. So, Neil, this has been a fascinating conversation. Like Josh said, we blinked and it just kind of went by really quickly. So, we're both going to meet you at the grocery store in the produce aisle, and we're going to continue this conversation.
I'll be waiting for you guys. But in all seriously, we'd love you guys to be able to come out, see the park, and for your listeners as well, please get in touch. I'm happy to answer questions, etc. But come down when we open, come and see what is happening in Six Flags Qiddiya City.
Excellent. And Neil, how would people get in touch with you?
The best way to reach out to me is LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's fantastic, and I'm always on there. So please connect with me. I owe a lot of the success of my career to connections that I've made and relationships that I've made. And I always say to people, I think there's 1,000 guys in the industry I could call out and ask questions. And I do the same. If someone sends me a question, let's pitch together and make the industry a better place. There's no monopoly on knowledge.
Awesome. Absolutely. Excellent. Neil, this has been so much fun. Can't wait for the park to open, and can't wait to come visit, and can't wait to ride Falcon's Flight and all the other things that the park has to offer. But in the meantime, thank you for your time today. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.